for a minute, and then Jen, if it looks like you need it, I'll pop the question.
Sit down, everybody. Sit. Girls, Ashton, sit down.
Everybody say Colorado. I'm a giraffe.
Can we get this front light, please, just so they can see it?
Classrooms, can you make sure your microphones are muted? I hear it sounds like somebody put their
Bring that on.
microphone back on.
Was that I'm a giraffe?
Oh, Mrs. Shaughnessy's class is here. Perfect. Okay, everybody should be on mute now, and we should be good. All right. Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. Now, if you haven't been tuning in all day, you've missed a lot. We've been hanging out in Norfolk, Virginia at the Virginia Zoo. We've met all kinds of animals. Let's see, we spent the morning with the cassowaries, the bison. We hung out with the orangutans. We had a little lunch break because, you know, we were hungry. We saw the animals eating all morning, so we thought maybe we should have a little something too. We just hung out with beautiful Cleo, a massive python. She was incredible. She got us moving all around the field so that we got that hangout going. And unfortunately, all good things do come to an end. We're on our final event from the Virginia Zoo. We're going to meet some of the animals from the Okavango. We've got some, probably see the giraffe in the background. We have an ostrich, looks like, hanging out with us right now. And we're going to meet Jen. And Jen's going to tell us a little bit about what we're seeing behind us. After that, we're going to rock some Q&A with the classrooms. And then, yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So thanks so much, Jen.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everybody. Thank you guys for joining in today. Like you said, we have some giraffe here behind us. We actually have 4 species of animals out here in this exhibit. It's what we call a mixed species exhibit here at the zoo. We have an ostrich over here. The 4 giraffe, we have an antelope species, which is a little forest antelope that lives out here called a yellow-backed diker. We have 3 of them, and we also have a family of southern ground hornbills, which are some of our favorites as well. They are a family group, a mom, dad, and a baby. So they might come over as well. So these mixed species exhibits are fantastic here at the zoo. These animals would live together naturally in the wild. They would cross paths in their natural environment. And it's great here at the zoo because they get those natural interactions with each other. They definitely keep each other entertained. They have different relationships with each other, just like we have with different people. The animals have different relationships with their own species, as well as the other species out here. You can see the little baby giraffe maybe coming up here behind me. Her name is Kylie, and she was born here at the zoo. Her dad is actually standing right behind her. Her dad's name is Billy, and Billy is about 15 years old. Kylie was born in May, early May. So she's just a few months old. And then if you can see to the other side there, that giraffe there, her name is Noelle. And Noelle is a unrelated female. And so the males will have multiple females at one time. So as long as there's only one male, then multiple females can live together. And that's how they would hang out in the wild. You'd have one dominant male and then a lot of females that he breeds with. And so that's how this sort of setup here. Billy is going to come over and say hello to us. And this is Gobble, it's the ostrich here as well. So you can see Billy eating maybe, yeah? Okay, so these guys are pretty cool eaters. They have developed these amazing adaptations. And so what they'll do is he'll actually stick his tongue out here and he'll grab the leaves off. So what we call these animals are browsers. So you have animals that are herbivores that eat all different types of plants. Some eat them off the ground that are called grazers. And then you have an animal like this that's a browser. So everybody gets their own sort of level of food. Giraffes are very tall. They're obviously going to eat the stuff up really high and leave, this sort of kind of stuff in the middle for an animal like an ostrich or a bigger antelope species. And then the little yellow-backed dikers, they would eat the stuff on the ground. So everybody's kind of got their place. So Billy here, you can see him sticking his tongue out and pulling those leaves off. This is the bulk of their diet. So these guys eat mostly leaves. They will eat some of the bark and some of the smaller branches as well. But for the most part, they're going to pull those leaves off. And you see how he has that big top lip there? There's actually no teeth on the top of that lip. That is actually just a big, thick lip and a hard palate. They have teeth in the front, on the bottom, incisors. And then they have molars in the back, and that's it. There's no canines. There's no incisors on the top because all they need to do is pull those leaves off, put them to the back of their mouth to chew them up and then swallow them. So their tongues are very, very long. I'll see if I can get him to stick his tongue out for you here. Their tongues are up to 18 inches long, and they're very dark as well. So you can see him, he'll stick his tongue out here. You can see that big, long purple tongue. And they are actually dark so that their tongues don't get sunburned, which is so cool, right? A lot of people don't know that giraffes have purple tongues. They have to stick those tongues out all the time to gather the food, and they're eating constantly. These guys have multiple chambered stomachs, so they have to eat all the time to keep all that digestive enzymes and everything moving through their guts. So they're just eating all the time, so those tongues are sticking out all the time, so that way they don't get sunburnt, which is a pretty cool adaptation. So this guy is big. He's an adult male, and he is about 16 feet tall, which is pretty big for a male giraffe. So he's considered full grown. He is pretty dark. A lot of people comment about how dark they are. It can be species specific. It can also be a dominance thing as well. They've actually found that giraffes that are more dominant tend to be a little bit darker. We have another ostrich coming up here as well. So we have two ostriches. We have a male and a female. These guys are pretty cool because you can see this one here is Gobbles. This is the female and she's gray. That one over there is Jack, and his feathers are actually black in color. And the reason for that is the females and the males both sit on the eggs, and the females will actually sit on the eggs during the day, and the males will sit on the eggs at night. And so that's the thought process behind those different colorizations that they have there. You can also kind of see the male's beak is a little bit pink. That is a breeding thing. So usually in a lot of animals, birds in particular, the females choose the males. So the males have bright colors, bright feathers, things like that. And so he will get very, very pink during breeding season. His beak will turn like neon pink. It's really cool looking. His legs will turn pink, even his eyebrows. Anywhere there's skin, essentially, and not feathers, it will turn bright pink. And that is something to attract Gobbles during the breeding season, which is pretty cool. They're kind of out of breeding season right now, but you can see he's just a little bit more pink than her there.
All right. Well, I think I'm going to come back in. I think we should meet some of our live classrooms. I'm just looking at YouTube right now. We got a ton of classrooms tuning in live via YouTube. So before I come back in, I want to give a quick shout out. Mrs. Blosso's 2 3s are hanging out in Guelph, Ontario. Let's see, we got some second graders hanging out in Antioch, Illinois. Looks like we've got some students hanging out from Lee County, Virginia. Where elementary 5th graders? You'll have to send me your location, where that school is. So I can see lots of groups. Send us in some questions via the chat. We'll work some of those in. But yeah, I'm going to come back in. We're going to start meeting some of our classrooms. So we're going to go to Cumberland Center, Maine. We've got some 4th graders hanging out with Mrs. McInnes's class. If you guys want to turn your microphone on. Oh, there they are. Hey, boys and girls. All right, who's up for the question?
Does someone have a question?
What do giraffes like to eat mostly?
What do they mostly like?
So they like to eat plants. So leaves are their favorite things to eat. They have a variety of types of what we call browse that we feed them here at the zoo. Browse is just basically a fancy word for plants. So in the wild, they would eat a lot of acacia trees, which is a tree that's specific to Africa. Here in Virginia, we feed them what grows naturally here, and we actually grow some specific browse for them as well. So he is over here eating a couple different types, and he's got some too as well. We also feed them a grain diet here at the zoo, which is kind of like you taking like your daily vitamin. And they will eat a little bit of produce, as I actually have some carrot sticks here. And these guys really like carrots as well.
All right, very great question to start. Love bite from Jacker. I don't know.
I think it was Gobbles. Just checking me out.
All right, Mrs. Fisher's class hanging out with us in Carsonville. If you guys want to turn your mic on, give us a big shout out, then go ahead with the question.
we have a question. Yep, go ahead.
Where are giraffes' tongues slimy?
Why are giraffes' tongues slimy?
Oh,
Why are they
slimy?
slimy? That's such a good question. So they are very slimy because they have to chew up all of that food in their mouth. They have to get it just right before they swallow it. Another reason is because they will actually regurgitate their food, kind of like a cow. So their food actually comes all the way back up from their stomach, all the way back up their neck and back into their mouths. They'll chew their cud again. They'll roll it around in their mouth, get it nice and moist, and then redigest it. And so by the time that food goes through all those chambers, all of that system, they go to the bathroom, there are 0 nutrients left. They get every single nutrient out of that food. So that is a really good question.
All right, really cool. We're gonna head into Canada, Thunder Bay, Mrs. Shaughnessy's class, and 6th graders hanging out with us. If you guys want to turn your mic on, give us a shout out. Go for it.
Do you stand up? McKenna, you here?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Are they endangered?
Are they endangered?
Are they endangered? Yes. And these guys actually are a subspecies of giraffe. There are actually 7 different species of giraffe. There's not just one type, there's 7 different types. And so these guys are called Masai giraffe. They have a pretty distinct pattern. You can see how their pattern is a little bit kind of muddled. Each spot is a little bit different and they don't have very distinct fine lines around their spot. See how it's all kind of messy looking? That indicates that these guys are Masai giraffe. And so they are one of the more rare species of giraffe.
All right, great question. Mrs. Zad Rosny, Bristol, Connecticut. If you guys want to turn your mic on, give us a shout out.
Hi, say hi. Okay. All right, we have a question right here.
Does their neck hurt when they grab food from the ground?
When they grab food from the ground, that is a good question. So these guys actually have to drink water all the way. So if you've ever seen giraffe drink water,
Oh, absolutely.
they will actually spread their legs all the way out nice and wide to get that head all the way down to the ground. So you can see Billy right now is standing pretty straight legged. That neck is very flexible. He can reach pretty much, not quite to the ground, but he can reach pretty much to kind of where we're standing. And if he were needing to get something, a grass, all the way down off the ground or to take a drink of water, he would just spread those front legs out and then that head would be able to lower better. Great question.
Great question. I'm sure the neck is something you notice right away. And then the bones in the neck, are there more than we have or is it the same?
So they actually have the same amount of vertebrae that we have. They have 7 vertebrae in their neck, just like us. They're just very large. So each vertebrae is about 12 inches, which is very big compared to ours.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Let's see, Mrs. Smith's class in Peterborough, Ontario. If you guys want to turn your microphone on, let's get a big shout out.
Okay, now there you go. Say hi. Okay, duck down.
All right, who's up?
Put your head up a little bit further. Right there. Okay. Your question.
How many giraffes are living right now?
In the world.
How many giraffes are living? Well, here at the zoo, we have 4 different giraffes. We've had quite a few babies here born at the zoo. The female that is standing over there in the bushes, she's actually had 7 babies here at the zoo. That female over there has had a baby as well. So we've had lots of babies here over the years, but we currently just have 4.
All right, great question. Let's go to Texas this time. Mrs. Skaggs' class is joining us. You guys want to turn your microphone on, give us a huge shout out. We're ready for your question. Yeah.
Now.
Ah, there we go. God, we can hear you now. How's it going, Mrs. Skaggs' group? I think you might have turned it on and accidentally turned it off. All right. Well, don't worry. Hold on for just a second. I'll jump to another classroom and I'll come over and I'll make sure I get your mic turned on if you're having a little bit of trouble. So let's go to Stratford, Ontario. Mrs. Hearn-Smith's class is joining us, some 3rd, 4th graders. If you guys want to turn your mic on, give us a big shout out.
Can you say hi?
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
How fast do giraffes go?
Fast giraffe.
How fast? So giraffes can actually run pretty fast. They can run about 15 to 20 miles an hour, which is pretty fast. They are pretty awkward when they run, and they only really run if they have to. They don't run for pleasure. They're usually running away from something if they are running, but they actually can run pretty fast. It's just pretty funny looking.
All right, really cool question. Let's go to California. So we're going coast to coast on this hangout.
I
Mr.
like
Tornberg's
it.
class. You guys want to turn your mic on, get nice and loud for us, and we're ready for a question.
Say hello.
Oh my God.
That's the question. Guys,
How big can an ostrich egg get?
How big ostrich egg get? So they have pretty big eggs, actually. They are about this big, and there's actually about the contents of 20 chicken eggs inside of that one ostrich egg. Another cool tidbit is these ostrich are pretty big, right? You guys can see how big they are out there compared to the giraffe. So they can weigh quite a bit of weight, 150-ish pounds. And so those eggs will actually sustain their weight. So you have a person that weighs about 150 pounds, you can actually stand on that egg and it will not break. The shells are very thick and they've been made to withstand that ostrich pressure, which is pretty cool. So they're big, thick, very, very strong eggs.
All right, very cool. So I'm going to slide off camera for a second. I'll see if I can get our classroom in Texas, see if I can get their microphone turned on for them. Okay, let's try that. Mrs. Skaggs' class, how you doing? All right. That's funny. I just turned on Mrs. Skaggs' class. Mrs. Skaggs' class, give me a wave at the camera if you can hear me. Okay. Okay. Well, no big deal. Your microphone's acting up a little bit. Mrs. Skaggs, if you look at the bottom of the screen, there's a chat option. If you click chat, you can type in a question there, and then I'll ask the question for you guys. Looks like the microphone's just not cooperating right now. But while we wait for that question to come in, I'm going to jump over to YouTube because we have so many classes. Yep, lots of questions. A few more classrooms to greet as well. New Jersey, Freehold, New Jersey. You've got some 3rd graders hanging out with us. North Carolina, Royal Oaks is hanging out with us. Let's start with a question here. Okay, perfect. So they're wondering about the horns on a giraffe's head. What are they for?
Yeah, so those are actually called ossicones. And those are part of their skull. So a true horn is actually part of their skull where an antler is not. These actually are true horns. If you were to look at just a giraffe skull without skin on it, it is part of it. So those are called ossicones, and there's not really a big purpose for them necessarily. The males will spar and kind of fight over females sometimes with them. But other than that, it's just kind of for looks. There's not really a huge purpose.
All right, perfect. Let's grab one more from YouTube while I'm over here. Okay, so we have a question. They're interested in Mrs. Sheridan's class about the spots on a giraffe.
The spots on the giraffe.
What purpose do they serve?
Yeah, so their spots are for camouflage. So if this giraffe were to be a little bit further away from us, even though they have, you know, brown and white and gray kind of colorizations, when you're looking at something as a whole, it is very, very good camouflage. So kind of off in the distance, and you know, there's some grasses or trees growing up. It is amazing how good these spots in different patterns will actually camouflage their bodies.
All right, so I see Mrs. Skaggs' class has a question on a piece of paper. Hold that nice and close to the camera for me. How many times do you feed them in a day, the giraffes?
How many times do we feed them? So
Yeah.
we do pretty much feeding all day long. So these guys have options out here to eat on their own whenever they want to. And then we have certain times of the day where we put food out as well. So we specifically give them food about 3 times a day, but everything out here is edible, and they have a feeder that they can go over to anytime as well. So because these guys are ruminants and they have those multi-chambered stomachs, they need to be eating all the time. And so they kind of eat off and on all day and really all night too. These guys are not big sleepers, so they don't sleep for more than about an hour at a time. And so they'll kind of rest for a little bit, get up, take a few bites, rest again.
All right, perfect. Well, we're doing so well with our questions that I think we can do a speed round through our classes again. So I'm going to start off. We'll mix up the order a little bit more this time. Let's start in Bristol, Connecticut with Mrs. Ed Rosney's group. You want to turn your microphone on for us?
Nice and loud.
There you are.
Go.
How tall is a giraffe?
How tall is the giraffe? So the tallest one out here is this guy coming up behind me here, and he's about 16 feet tall. This female here, her name is Amara. She just came over for the first time there, and she's about 14 feet tall, which is full grown for a giraffe. So that's almost 2 stories for the big male.
All right, Mrs. McGinnis's class in Cumberland Center, Maine. Do you guys want to turn your microphone on? Get nice and loud for us.
How can we save the giraffes?
How can you save the giraffes? That's such a good question. So the biggest thing you can do is be responsible about your environment. So you're recycling, you are reusing, all of those things help the giraffe, as well as just getting the word out to everybody that giraffes need us. Giraffes are in dire need of conservation. They're losing their habitats. So anything you can do to sort of recycle and get things, single-use plastics, even your cell phones, your iPads, things like that at home, you can recycle, because a lot of those batteries and things come from where the minerals come from the grounds where these guys are from.
All right, Mrs. Smith's class in Peterborough. Do you guys want to turn your mic on one more time?
Go for it.
How long is the lifespan of a giraffe?
That's a good question. So these guys live a little bit longer in a captive situation than they do in the wild. But on average, an older giraffe is in its probably early 20s. So you will see some live up into sort of mid 20s, but about 20 is average.
All right, Mrs. Hearn Smith in Stratford. Do you guys want to turn your mic on one more time?
What's the giraffe's biggest predator?
What's their biggest predator? So adult giraffes don't really have a natural predator unless they're injured or they're sick or something like that. The younger giraffes, those are the ones that are really at risk, and those would be any of the big carnivores that you would have in Africa. Probably particularly lions would be their biggest ones, but even hyenas, cheetahs, things like that could potentially take down a very small, young giraffe. But the adult ones, there's really no natural predators for the big ones.
And then am I correct, their legs? I mean, that's pretty powerful self-defense there. You don't want to get
They have a
kick from one of
very
those.
serious kick.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
All right.
That and their necks and their heads are the biggest defense. Yeah.
So males, will they fight that way? Is that how they?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep. The males will spar and swing those big heads and necks around. Yep.
Okay. Mrs. Fisher's class, you guys want to turn your microphone on?
What do giraffes sleep in?
What do they sleep in? So these guys have an area where they can come inside if we need them to. They also have some holding areas that you can't see that are still outdoors. And so these guys will come into those sort of areas overnight. But for sleeping, they usually will sleep standing up for the most part. They will lay down some for a short amount of time, maybe an hour or 2 at the most. But for their circulation in these big bodies, they don't lay all the way flat like we do. They wouldn't lay all the way on the ground. They would kind of tuck their legs underneath them for a little bit and then get back up, get that blood moving again, and get a couple bites to eat and then rest again.
All right. Back to California, Mr. Tornberg's class. You guys have another question.
What is the difference between a baby giraffe's weight and an adult giraffe's weight?
The difference between the baby's weight and the adult's weight.
The baby's weight and the adult's weight. So these adults can weigh up to about 2,000 pounds, which is a lot. The babies, when they're born, are about 150 50-ish pounds. So very, very big difference. They are about 6 feet tall when they're born. So they're tall, they're just real tall and lanky. And even this guy, you know, being, you know, a ton, basically 2,000 pounds, isn't a whole lot when you think of how tall they are. They're thin, they have those thin legs, they have those sort of bigger bodies, but for the most part, it's not a whole lot of weight in comparison to how big they are.
All right, we need to visit Mrs. Shaughnessy's class, Thunder Bay, if you want to turn your mic on. Hey,
Do zoos increase or harm biodiversity?
So definitely help it. I mean, these guys, you know, our goal is to help these species. We want to sustain these populations in a captive situation, like here in the zoo, so that we can let people know what these guys are going through. So we see them as ambassadors for their species. They are the spokespersons for giraffes all over the world. So right here in Virginia, you can see a giraffe up close and learn about them, so that then in turn, you're going to remember that when you leave the zoo, and you're going to care about those wild counterparts.
absolutely, and zoos play such an important role in preserving biodiversity. There's some, you know, breeding endangered species that can hopefully be released back into the wild someday. And there's some species that you can't find in the wild anymore. They're surviving in populations in zoos that are keeping them alive. So zoos have a really important role to play in preserving biodiversity. All right, let's see. I think we've hit everybody for round 2. I'm just going to come over quickly and do one more YouTube check and see if Mrs. Skaggs wrote another question for paper. So let's take a quick look there. But while we're doing that, Jen, do you want to tell us a little bit about why you decided to become a zookeeper? What? Yeah.
So I've always been an animal lover since I was a little kid. Grew up in the country with horses and pigs and all sorts of animals at home. Went to college and thought I wanted to be a veterinarian. Worked at animal hospitals all through high school and college. And as I was figuring out what I wanted to do with my life after college, I decided to take a couple of years off and explore the zoo field. I thought I would only do it for a little bit, and then I would go back and become a veterinarian. And here I am 15 years later, working with these amazing animals and amazing people. I've worked at a couple different zoos all over the United States with all different kinds of species. I mean, here in Africa alone, the keepers that work in this area, we get to work with 16 different species every day. So it's really incredible. It's an amazing collection, and just a fantastic career that we love.
All right, awesome. So San Antonio, Texas, Mrs. Skaggs class, if you have another question. Oh, I see somebody. Oh, there it is. Ooh, can a giraffe be an albino?
Can a giraffe? They can. I am not a genetics expert, but there have been pictures out there of animals that of giraffe that are all white. I think there's different types of it that I don't know all the technical words on, to be honest with you. But on a rare species, or on a rare case, there are a few out there that have had white offspring. Yep.
Okay, now I just want to make sure, because we have a big group of classrooms on camera. Give me a wave if we haven't been to your class twice. I'm pretty sure we hit every class twice. But if we missed one twice, I definitely want to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind for their second round. All right, perfect. So we're going to take one more question off of YouTube, and this is more of a general question, Jen. They're wondering, how many other animals do you get to work with? And then at the Virginia Zoo, roughly how many species do you have at the zoo?
How many species do we have at the zoo?
A
couple thousand. 150 different species at the zoo. Animal numbers are probably in the thousands total when you think of all the little frogs and all of those little animals. Here in our Africa area, we have 16 different species. We have everything from these guys that you see here. We have lion, cheetah, zebra, rhino. We have a really cool forest antelope that's critically endangered called an eastern bongo, which are some of our favorites. We love those guys. We have cheetah, red river hog, the hornbills. We have a crane species here, a Stanley crane. We have a goose species, Egyptian geese, hyrax. We even work with meerkats. So we have a very wide variety just here in the Africa department.
All right, very cool. So I think we can probably sneak 1 or 2 questions in. So I'm just going to pick. Let's go coast to coast. Let's start off with our classroom in California. If you guys have another question, go ahead.
Go, Dan. Quick.
How long have you been being at the zoo?
So I've been here at this zoo for almost 6 years, and I've been a keeper for about 15 years.
All right, and we're going to go all the way across the coast. We're going to go to Connecticut. Ms. Rosny, if you guys want to turn your microphone on.
How is a giraffe's neck? How tall can a giraffe's neck be?
How tall can their neck be? So the neck is their biggest part of their body. Their total body can be up to 18 feet tall, is about the biggest giraffe out there. So that neck is probably 8-ish feet in length of just the neck part.
All right, very cool. So we went coast to coast across the U.S. Let's dip into Canada one more time. This is Shaughnessy's grade 6s in Thunder Bay. Do you guys want to finish us off with a final question?
Go ahead.
How intelligent are they?
How intelligent are they? That's a great question. So I like to say that animals are as intelligent as they need to be, right? So they have evolved to have their intelligence level to have survived as long as they have. The coolest thing about giraffes are we like to call them the watchtowers of the savannah. So giraffes are very, very tall, and they are sort of the lookout over everybody. So we like to joke that if you are out in the wild and you're a little antelope and a giraffe is running, you should probably run because they're probably running from something. So these guys by nature are very, very skittish because they see things all the time. They are very aware of their environment. If we change anything, they definitely notice. So they're pretty smart, but they're smart sort of as they need to be. They are skittish by nature, I would think is their biggest thing. So we work a lot with them. They're used to us and their day-to-day basis, but we work a lot on desensitization with them, getting them used to new things all the time. But they are, they definitely see if things change out here, or if a guest is wearing a funky shirt or something that's bright colored. These guys definitely notice. That's their job, is to be on the lookout over everything. So pretty cool.
All right, so I was just gazing behind me because I saw the hornbill, but I think it went the other direction. I heard the hornbill really like shoelaces, so I got a little bit excited. We get a last minute cameo, but I don't think it's going to happen. Well, look, there's so many thank yous to do right now because first of all, the classrooms, you guys were incredible as per usual. Thank you for all the questions. We had a ton of classrooms tuning in on YouTube, so thank you for tuning in and thank you for your questions. I want to say just a huge thanks in general to the staff at the Virginia Zoo in Norfolk. It's been a ton of fun today. We've got to see a lot. We've probably thousands of students joined in virtually today from all over Canada and the US. So thank you for everything that you guys did to make it happen, carrying cameras, holding computers, wrangling snakes, all kinds of fun adventures like that. And yeah, Jen, thank you so much for bringing the Okabongo to us today.
My pleasure.
All right. So the last thing we'll do today, boys and girls in your classrooms, teachers, if you can unmute the microphones, let's get loud so the ostriches, the giraffes, and the hornbill somewhere back there can hear you. A big fine thank you before we sign off for today. So here we go.